For this gunslinger video, we have some 9mm carbines here, and we're going to revisit the Dolo system. And you guys might recognize these. They are made by Kel-tec. It's the Sub 2000 series. They're 9mm carbines. They use Glock magazines. There are other models available that use different magazines from other pistol manufacturers. So what do we have here?
Well, we have all three generations of the Kel-tec Sub line. This is actually the Sub 9. This is the Sub 2000 Gen 1, and this is the Sub 2000 Gen 2. Even though there are three generations, this is a Gen 1 and Gen 2 because these are both polymer frame guns that share a lot of things together. The original, the Sub 9, is something you don't hardly see anymore. When they first came out, they're pretty expensive compared to these. These are around the $375 to $450 range for these. Or this one, even used today, goes in the $600 to $700 range. This is an aluminum receiver. These are polymer. This is a much heavier, not incredibly heavier, but it's a noticeably heavier firearm than those two are if you pick them up. There are a lot of characteristics that are not shared with this gun into these two generations. Of course, they all look the same. They all fold. The stocks look quite similar. You know, the magazines go in each one of the grips. The front sight bases from this generation and this generation look quite the same. But that's where the similarities stop. The magazine release on this one here is part of this grip frame that's actually removable, where this particular model could accept different manufacturers' magazines, Smith & Wesson and so on, so on. It's held together by screws with two halves of an aluminum receiver. It still breaks down by pulling down the trigger guard. Then it comes around and it has a detent that locks into the front sight base. To deploy the carbine, it comes back around. You'll have an aluminum rear sight, and your bolt actually locks back on your last round when fired. This one's in the rearward position right now. The safety is placed here in a somewhat, comfortable position. It's kind of similar to a 1911 type safety, the way that it works. The Sub 2000 first generation, of course you have a polymer frame versus the aluminum. That's one big difference. The handguards look pretty similar. The front sights look similar, but that one's aluminum. This one's made out of polymer, and it has like a fiber optic, like pinkish orangish front insert. These have got a allowance to lock the bolt to the rear and allows you to slap it kind of like an MP5 or an HK type or style firearm. It also lets you come right here and take that trigger guard down and fold. It locks in back here. There is a large like polymer detent and a guide, and it locks in to the back of the front sight. It just has a piece right here that has to be pulled up. Then it locks into place. This particular one has a shorter grip than these because it actually can take a Glock 19 magazine. These take the Glock 17 magazine, or the 33 round stick mag for like the Glock 18. So you can use the 17 in these, you could use the 19 and the 17 and the 18 mags in this particular model. This one is for the 17 mag only also. Now getting to that second generation, one thing that a lot of people griped about with these two was the lack of any rails to put accessories and things on. This has got a Picatinny rail on top and the bottom. It's got M-lock slots on the sides, both sides. The front sight base has gone back to an aluminum versus polymer or plastic, and it's really adjustable. This model and this one both have got a plastic rear sight. That's been a target of some scrutiny. Some people say that's really fragile. I've personally not seen one break. Doesn't mean that can't happen, but it does seem a little, you know, hinky compared to this aluminum rear sight that was on the Sub 9. With this model also, you've got an adjustable length of pull. It won't lock in the closed position if you have this in the other lengths of pull, though, because it would not let that lock into this piece right here, because this stock would be longer. It's going to hit the front sight. You know, so if you've got long arms or whatever, I guess if you're firing it and you had the time, you could change this out. I probably wouldn't recommend it. I don't think there's really a reason for it. But if you could, if you wanted to.
Yeah, it seems like there's only like maybe an inch to an inch and a half of length that you can get out of that.
Yeah. As far as, you know, sling attachments on these, you know, on this old one, I've got a single point sling attachment I've put on here. This one's got the same, you know, very, very similar to almost exact same setup. They've made allowance for a sling here and a sling here on this particular model, and I'm seeing where there's some people online that are adapting a QD, quick detach sling swivel that'll go in these slots on these also. There are several aftermarket sources for parts and pieces. Red Lion makes a handguard for this that actually rotates around, and the reason for that is if you were to put any optics on this rail, I guess you couldn't fold this anymore, because if you had an optic here, how would you get this to fold? So Midwest Industries and Red Lion have got optics mounts that they make for these where they can still be folded with an optic on them. You know, the Red Lion is one of these that kind of turns, and your optic would go on the side or on this side, and Midwest Industry has one that fits on the M-LOK slots of only this new generation. It fits on the M-LOK slot and it turns out of the way so you can fold it, and then when you get it in this position, you turn it around and it comes back to here. Then you have to turn it out of the way in order to deploy the gun in the firing position.
Another difference that I noticed with the Gen 2 and the other two, the Gen 2 actually has a barrel that's threaded to 1/2 by 28.
That's right.
So you can affix a muzzle device to that, or a suppressor, or.
And then I'm even seeing some of these that people are suppressing online, where, you know, that muzzle nut does come off of there and it is threaded, like Terry said. It makes it a pretty, you know, neat little piece. Whereas with a handgun, you know, when a suppressor gets hot or whatever, it gets a little harder to handle. With a long gun or something like this, you know, you can continue to fire and still have it out in front of you, which, you know, be kind of a nice addition to that. The reason why I have this AR pistol out here, if you remember from our Dolos video, you know, when you have a system that's like this, you've got a compact package. Well, you know, with this one still being together, you still have got a package almost the same exact length of what this is, but your barrel and your receiver are at least together and hinged. Be it this is in 9mm versus 223, and, you know, the AR platform for optics and things and sights is probably a little more optimum for the use that it's for than what the Kel-tec Sub line is, because these sights, due to this, you know, you have a really, really flat cheek weld. I mean, an incredibly flat cheek weld. It's hard to get down on these sights well, and that's why a lot of people have tried to put red dots and things on here, whereas with the AR, you know, family, you just don't have that same difficulty doing that same stuff. You know, it's all together and in, and a lot easier potentially to get your sights with this. You know, they all can fit in a backpack, you know, in their folded position. I mean,
yeah, well, this would be great to take out hiking. If you're
of course. I mean, that's what you've got, and it's together, and you wouldn't have two pieces rattling around, just here and it's ready to go. You know, so if you had a magazine in it already and you had this bolt locked back and you let it go, it's going to be ready to fire. So it's pretty quick. And you know, if you've got a 9mm companion handgun, it makes sense to have the same caliber here in a carbine. Terry, you got anything to add?
No, I'm ready to go shoot some of them.
Well, let's knock them out. Gonna run a Glock stick mag in it, and this is the Sub 9, you know, of course the first generation. We're gonna see how it does. Of course, this one locks back on the last round. That's something that the other two won't do. That's something I like about this one, but it doesn't. You can't manually put it back unless you put your finger in the chamber, and if that bolt goes home on your finger, that's not going to feel good. Just manually checking your chamber without a magazine in it is pretty important with this one, since you can't lock it back manually. Now, as you can see, it's locked back right here, and it functioned flawlessly. I like this gun a lot. It's kind of funny that we kind of have 3 unicorns out here on the range today. You hardly ever see a Sub 9, let alone 3 Sub 2000, you know, Sub guns from Kel-tec in one place.
I'm gonna run one of the 33 round magazines through the Gen 1 with the 19 size grip. Man, we have a stovepipe malfunction here.
Yep, you got a double feed.
And a double feed.
Yes. And another. Clear your chamber.
It's not gonna clear.
And another. Another. Well, hey, at least you can get an exercise in clearing double feeds in the Sub 2000
Right.
Gen 1.
I'm gonna try to make it through the rest of this magazine here.
Almost.
I mean, it's accurate. It's right on. I'm hitting seal every time.
Huh, it cleared itself. Yep. Still have one in the chamber.
That is embedded into the plastic there.
That's not good.
And magazine's empty. Chamber's empty. So this may function better with a different magazine. I don't really know what the problem would be. This is a Glock factory mag, but you know, we'll revisit this one here in a few minutes with a standard size magazine.
Well, just remember, that's a Glock factory mag, but it's not a Glock factory gun. And now it's time to try one of the Glock stick mags in the Kel-tec Sub 2000 Gen 2. Well, first impressions, that's the first shots I've fired out of this gun. Incredibly accurate. A little more recoil than what I experienced out of the Sub 9, but it's a heavier gun. Hits, I can't ask for anything better out of the box, sighted in. I'll have Terry scan down and look at the rubber dummy after I made several hits on the steel with the stick magazine. With this Glock 17 magazine, I hammered the living daylights out of the rubber dummy's head. So I'll have Terry pan down there and take a look at that real quick. Old rubber dummy is one dead dude. Thanks to the Kel-tec Sub 2000 Gen 2.
After some lube and loading up an actual Glock 19 magazine, we're going to give the Gen 1 another shot. And we got a choke here.
Mm-hmm. Another.
And magazine is empty.
Well, what else you got there, Terry?
I have a P-mag.
Well,
that seemed to work great.
Magpul P-mag, you know, as far as the Magpul Glock mag, I should say. I guess maybe it doesn't like the magazines for what it was intended to use.
I'd like to give that another try.
Yeah, I think we should. And just for the sake of trying again, this is that Magpul Glock mag and the 19 Gen 1 Kel-tec Sub 2000. And it ran good for Terry with that in there, and I'm going to try it out and see if I get the same. And as a matter of fact, I did. It rang the heck out of steel. Accurate, dependable. I guess the P-mag or the Glock Magpul magazine is the magazine for this gun. It runs great with those.
All right, I'm going to try the Gen 2 with the MaxTech polished steel cased ammo. This thing really does fire nicely and worked great with that ammo. This is the Sub 9, and we're gonna try the Magpul mag in it. Functioned great.
Well, Terry, what did you think about the Kel-tec 9mm rifles?
Well, actually getting some trigger time with these today, it made me want one. So.
Well, they're accurate, dependable. We saw the first gen have some hiccups with magazines, but that was cured with the Magpul mag. All of them have been accurate. It really enjoys shooting a lot. I think that's a viable defense firearm. You know, it's something you could carry with you in your car, have with you at bedside. I just think it's a unique firearm, but it definitely has its place. I think we're gonna take some parting shots and call it a day. Thank you, guys. There we go. Shooting the Sub 9 and realized that the front sight was loose enough that I could move it back and forth by hand. Of course, that could be remedied by tightening those set screws on each side of this and jamming it in place. But it was shooting good, then started shooting off, and that's the reason why. It wouldn't take anything to do it, and it's not falling out, but you know, when all of a sudden something is shooting good, then it starts to go south on you. You know, take a look at things like your sights and so on. It may not be the shooter. Sometimes it is the gun. So, you know, a few turns of an Allen wrench and this will be back and ready to go.